Good morning, everybody. Hello. Welcome back to day 2 of Develop 2023. We've got a packed room in here again and people in the overflow room watching the session be streamed. So I'm going to let Sam Loveridge from Games Radar get on and welcome the team from Guerrilla. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, welcome to the keynote. We have Michiel van Leeuw, who is the Studio Director and Technical Director of Guerrilla. We have Angie Smets, who is the former studio head of Guerrilla, but now Head of Development Strategies at PlayStation Studios. And Jan-Bart van Beek, who is the Studio Director and Studio Art Director. I hope that's all right, anyway.
Yeah, yes. Good morning.
Why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about yourselves and how long you've worked with the studio and your connection to Guerrilla.
First. Oh, wow. I start first.
No pressure.
So I don't even know, Becky, where this all started. I think it was 1999, Becky, when we were starting to make the first Killzone trailer. It was still called Marines. That's sort of, Becky, how I came in the company. Becky, very young, like probably about 25 years old. And Michiel was already there. Becky, a lot of the staff, Becky, that's currently still there was already there as well, Becky. It's been an age and a little bit more. So arguably, Becky, we're 20 years old, but I think, Becky, actually we go back like 26 years old all together, Becky, working together. It's been quite a trek. But yeah, this is literally my first job in the games industry.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So it's going all right then, yeah?
So, yeah.
For me, it's actually my first job.
Whoa.
I was counting the other day, I think it's 28 years. I started together with Arjen Brusset, another Dutch programmer, working on Jazz Rabbit 2, which is like a side-scroller PC game. And always did tech and tools, made the editor for it and everything, and that rolled up into a small company called Orange Games, then Lost Boys Games, and then became Guerrilla. Then I remember hiring Jan-Bart. Actually hired Angie at some point as a visual designer for Killzone. I said like, we need some work on the visual design. She was a designer. Maybe how many weeks did we guess?
You said it's probably 6 weeks of work.
I'm super good at estimating.
Probably 6. So a programmer saying, yeah, probably 6 weeks of work. It was not just visual design. It's like, some like the save game system still hadn't really mapped out.
Memory cards.
If you remember the PlayStation 2. 2D stuff, and the PlayStation 2 had two memory card slots. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, it was already decided we would have autosave, which very bad decision. To that on PlayStation 2.
I'm sorry.
This was 20 years ago, so I'm sort of I was sort of
just a smidgen longer than
6 I've not been there that long, only 20 years. So and I had almost accepted a different job, but then I already knew Michiel and also knew Remco and Jeroen, and I figured, it's just a 6-week stint, and just the whole idea that you could develop on a PlayStation 2, which was an incredible, powerful machine at the time. I figured, finally you can do cool stuff with animations, and for just 6 weeks. So I go there, and it took me 3 weeks just to make an inventory of everything that we didn't have. I ended up going to Herman, who was the managing director at the time, and I said, there's some bad news and some good news. And he's like, what's the bad news? I said, you're going to need to hire an additional programmer and hire me too for another 10 months. And he's like, okay, and then what's the good news? I said, from the scheduling that I see, we might then just able to make the release date. And then he was like, okay. So I stayed to finish Killzone 1, did lots of the design. We plugged in the multiplayer really late, way too late.
Streaming system, multiplayer, multiple characters.
Yeah, and then Herman asked me to stay and build a multiplayer team for Killzone 2. And triple our concept art team, because we knew that with the next generation of hardware, more detail would be required.
And now look at you building
beautiful
games on PS5.
Yeah, but initially started with just a 6-week freelance thing to help out Michiel. Yeah.
So it's the 20th anniversary of Guerrilla, right? What does it mean to be winning this award this evening?
That's quite a surprise.
I think we're incredibly proud. I think the team, and I think we sit here representing the whole team at Guerrilla. I think we really have a culture where it's all about making games together, where everybody has ownership, everybody gives input, ideas come from the whole team. So for me, that we won this award just really reflects, I think, how the whole team really collaborates with each other. And
big honor, less than being the first studio to get
yeah,
award. I mean, it's great that they give them to people, but like,
Yeah.
getting that as an entire team is really amazing. I was like, of course, we do our best to make cool games and do something, but like being recognized as like a contribution to the industry is like, it's different than just people giving you Metacritic scores and they're refreshing. Like, that's a very sort of like, it's wider.
It means more for you guys, like, because that's kind of your ethos as a studio, right? It's all very collaborative and much more about working together than one person being the kind of face of the company.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you want to make good games, but it's nicer also make an impact on the industry or the collaboration with other studios. We're a very open studio. Like, we very often have studio visits from other, befriended studios, and might be in the same genre or even competitors, but like, we're always very open because you want to make, I mean, everybody, I think, in the games industry in general is there for a passion, because a lot of people could work somewhere else and make more money or a release car or a bigger house or something else. Like, everybody's there for a passion, but like, we try to also put that first, like as a company, or you can set it as your goal that you want to make a game. But I think what you want to do is, like, for most people, it's a very sort of like selfish reason why they go to work. They want to make the coolest things with the best people and the best friends and colleagues that they can do. So prioritizing that, of course, like, making games and sales is important because that gives you more input to actually hire the people to do more cool stuff with and get the best team. But
Like, Angie for more than 6 weeks, right?
yeah, but then getting, like, we're just optimizing fun and then getting an award for that, like, that's great.
Did you have anything to add? Sorry, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a tremendous achievement for indeed Guerrilla as the team. As Michiel said, Becky, it's we're Dutch, Becky, which is a very different way of working, Becky, than you see in the rest of the world. I think, Becky, it's all very flat in its hierarchy. So that also, Becky, means, Becky, that everybody, Becky, really has a large stamp to put on the game. And I think, Becky, that's also, Becky, what shines through the work. Everybody, Becky, really believes in what we're doing because they feel like they're part of it. And they're part of the decision making, they're part of the creative process, and that's helped us, Becky, over the years very much, Becky, not only to build the games that we've had, but also to change in the genres, Becky, that we've been making, because that's, of course, the jump from Killzone to Horizon was massive. And Becky, without all the goodwill of the studio and everybody that worked there, Becky, we would not have been able to do that.
How was it kind of like, what did you learn from Killzone that made you think, okay, right, now we're ready to make something completely different?
Well, Killzone to some degree, Becky, was like our first IP, Becky, sort of like testing how this works, Becky, what are good ideas. I think, Becky, there are some great ideas in there. There's also some ideas, Becky, that never really worked. We had this idea, Becky, that sort of basing it more on franchises like Aliens, for example, Becky, where it's all about the bad guys. And Becky, what we found out, Becky, that people still really need a hero to sort of, Becky, clamp onto and identify themselves with. So just making a whole IP about the baddies is sort of hard to do good storytelling in that. And those are things, Becky, that we definitely, Becky, took on board. Also, maybe Killzone was a little bit too sort of Eurocentric. We always had Americans, Becky, that didn't really understand it. Becky, like, so the bad guys invaded the planet. How does that work? Becky, like, the good guys invade the bad guys, right? That's how it works. Because there's these idiosyncrasies, Becky, where it never really gelled with them. And Becky, I think, Becky, when we were looking at Horizon, Becky, we were really looking at a much broader audience and, Becky, telling a bigger story that's relevant to a lot more people.
I think what we also realized after a couple of Killzone games that it takes a lot of effort to really create a new IP, a new universe. So when we decided to do something new, from the start, we set out to really build something bigger than a single game. So really think from day one, think about it as a franchise. So I think we were quite ambitious thinking back.
I think Killzone was a really good testing ground. I mean, we started with very high ambitions, that we were like a bunch of dudes in the pub going like, hey, let's make games and make them for consoles, because nobody did console shooters. I mean, there was Halo was there, but it was announced as an Apple exclusive, and we set ambitions very high, and we had to learn very quickly. I mean, at some point we were on the Edge cover and they put like Halo for PS2 on it, and we're like, no, we don't know what we're just trying to play video game company. That was basically what we're doing. And then, like, we're building a universe, we're building technology, and like we went through this motion so quickly as a studio, learning all of these things. And like JB said, like we sort of got stuck a little bit also with IP. Like if you're the way you can tell stories, but we learned so much. Of course, then we ended. When we made last Killzone, we did a launch title for PlayStation 4. We also learned that launch titles are really hard. Or you're doing a live demo on stage as the only one, and like it's
Two
on-
live. We did a multiplayer live demo.
Oh
too.
yes, also,
Yeah.
yes.
Stressful.
Huh?
Yes,
Yes.
but we knew
Stressful.
what we wanted to have out of the IP. It had to be bigger. We were looking forward to something positive. We were making like ruins and everything for a little bit too long, and then the studio got very excited about making nature. Everyone was really excited about robots. We could see there's many things to do in the same universe, different games, different styles.
We had a really nice process that we used for the first time. We've used it more often since, but when we were looking for coming up with this new IP, we took it very seriously, and we created a brief for what that new IP had to be. And I think JB, you
Oh, I
wrote
don't
most of
remember
it.
the exact sort of mission brief, but it was something like create a narrative-driven IP in a fantastic world, basically with lots of action gameplay and a whole bunch of other things. And then basically we sent the team into the woods and go like, give us your best idea. And I think maybe we got 34 ideas in there.
Yeah.
Maybe that literally ranged from everywhere, from a soccer team that turned into werewolves, and also of course shooter ideas, lots of mech ideas. Maybe that was definitely there. But there were definitely some themes, maybe in those 34, maybe there we went like, oh, clearly they're kind of done with Killzone. Maybe nobody maybe wants to make dark, gritty shooters anymore. It all maybe had sort of maybe much more of this sort of hope punk vibe, maybe, and that's sort of maybe what we really latched onto. And Horizon came out of that process, maybe. So like, oh yeah, this really embodies maybe what we want to do as a studio right now.
Yeah, I think it was also funny. Like some people had complete games, and there was definitely like zombie shooters in there, but also some people just had gameplay ideas, and there was like the music people made something with like more like learning experience, much more hopeful. There was definitely a lot of people who were into something positive. I think like how many years have we killed? Like 12 years of making Space Nazis versus Space Americans probably does that to you. It's just like it's really.
Saw some color.
Yes. I think still think Killzone it's a beautiful world. I mean, looking back at it also it aged quite well. Some of it, maybe not Killzone 1, but Killzone 2 and on. Like it did quite well.
It's allowed.
Yeah.
Killzone 1.
And it was a great way also to see what the team wanted to make. That was, I think when we started the brief process, I don't think we realized that up front, but it was really good. Then you can indeed take a really big bet knowing that the team will support it. So that was important.
Yeah, also the team had grown quite a bit. I think the Killzone 1 team was about 40 people.
Yeah.
Basically, when we ended Shadowfall, basically, I think the team was about 140, I would say.
170.
So quite a lot of people basically joined the company, and basically we started noticing basically that basically those old core 60 people basically that were there basically were big shooter fans. Basically, these were the people basically that played a lot of Counter-Strike and Call of Duty and Halo. But a lot of these new people basically that were joining basically weren't necessarily that big a fan of shooters. So basically, as we started seeing, it's like, oh, actually, a lot of our people basically are much more interested in playing RPGs and open world games. Basically, that's sort of like an interesting genre to start exploring, because at that point that was sort of up and coming.
Yeah, I think also the industry started changing. Like shooters were much more for like younger kids and more hardcore players, and yeah, also the people themselves started playing more open world games, more story. People got more interested in like more depth into the game. We ourselves, I think, we also tried to tell interesting stories with the Killzone. It was a very difficult universe, and we didn't have the right experience. So I think when we went to Horizon, we had a mission at some point, like we're going to make this big open world game, but like we don't have the right storytellers, quest designers, tools, engine, stuff. Like make a checklist. It was like, okay. So we managed to hire some really good people on quest and story front. We knew what sort of like the big umbrella would be, like that we had a longer term plan of what the story, how it could unfold, and with more stories we could tell into the same universe. We had a very large checklist of all of the engine systems and stuff that we needed to make, and we just went on doing it. And that was really very. Looking back, it's always good to say like, the team was like super happy and proud and everything, but also there's always nervous moments, because there's always this period where your game. You're changing directions, or you're like losing sight of shore. The new thing that you're doing doesn't work yet because it's not fun, because we haven't done third person. We like your third person camera system is stupid, and like the combat you're doing is like doesn't work because we're used to gun combat. And so the team gets nervous in the middle, but at some point it starts to get fun, and like at least everybody enjoyed the challenge. And I think the biggest moment for us was like I think the announcement of the game.
Yeah, this was 2015. I think there's a clip actually from Herman Beggy that we were announcing it Beggy in the video reel. We were going to Beggy E3.
Put it on the screen.
Yeah, it will show up somewhere. It was 2015. Again, we had been working on it probably internally for about 4 years at that point, but very much in a skunkworks setup. We had literally one piece of combat working, and we're going to show that to the world. And I remember we were going on stage, and Herman was supposed to announce this to the world. There's 5,000 people in the room, and just right before we go in, I go like, Jesus Christ, it's a game about sort of space Vikings shooting at robot dinosaurs. People are going to laugh us out of the room. And Herman Baker just looked at me, sort of like, really, a little late.
Are we doing
A
this
little late.
Yeah, but that was really an incredible moment.
Mm-hmm.
I was backstage with Herman, and he went on stage, so I ran. You need to run all around to sit with the rest of the team. And then the trailer played, and then there was this gigantic applause, and I get goosebumps thinking of it.
I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. Yeah, I was on the other end. I was in Amsterdam, and we got of course, everybody wanted to see it live. And what we did, we got the entire team. We rented off the most beautiful cinema in Amsterdam. It's one of the most beautiful cinemas in the world. It's a very old, sort of like Jugendstil style endeavor. It's like beautiful, this big hall with all Baroque stuff. But it was the press conference was in the US, and it was like at 2 a.m. Dutch time. And the thing around E3, they had a press conference, and they would show at cinemas. You get a ticket to a cinema somewhere in the US. You could watch the press conference from Sony live. So we tried with PR to hook into like how did they do that? How can we watch it live? And they said well, there's a satellite uplink and blah blah. And then we got a satellite uplink from the cinema. We rented all the equipment and everything. And I remember it was 1 o'clock at night. They were a tech test, and I walked into the most beautiful cinema in Amsterdam, and saw this giant cord bar, and said Sony press conference, like a bar moving back and forth. It's like, wow. We're announcing something new and a satellite uplink. It felt like a very James Bond-like to me. And we sat there with the entire team, and it was so exciting. Nobody saw it coming. It was maybe the Guerrilla logo, I think, came on screen. No, it came in very late, I think, in the announcement. I think
it was Herman. I think Herman gave away that then there was a Guerrilla logo, but that was already known because Herman was on stage. But I think people were just expecting the next Killzone.
Yeah,
and not the Horizon.
Quite different.
just a little.
We also had a small behind closed door demo. I remember, which was the fighting the thunder job, pretty scripted, but at least it showed the combat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that got good responses from journalists. There was still a bit like, let's see if they can really pull it off. This looks really cool. Let's see if they can pull it off. But that year was actually pretty tough on the development side. There was a lot we still had to figure out. But I do remember that, the positive response from the internet, I think really fueled the whole team, and was like, okay, we now need to.
People like it.
Get it done.
We're doing this and it's happening.
I think within weeks we had the first fan art cosplayers. This was completely new to us. With Killzone, we didn't really have a cosplay community.
No.
I can imagine, but
it's different.
That was really, really surprising to us. Like, wow, look, people.
I also remember now that you said that the thing about journalists going let's see if they can pull it off, because of course you had a relatively smallish environment, and relatively it was one battle with a robot. It was also the one piece of gameplay that actually really worked, and everyone was but open world games don't look like that, because there was sort of a thing
there was that too.
There are other open world games that have given the industry the idea that open world games are a little bit less polished and they're quite buggy, and then they were let's see if they can actually make a game like that. So there was a lot of people, we'll sit it out. But
it was definitely positive. I think the whole response from media also was very positive, but also a bit let's see if they can pull this up.
It was also a great moment sort of in the industry, because we were showing our first demo there and making sure we're showing it to the public. But then occasionally we go Hideo Kojima's here, but he wants to see the demo. And okay. And then it's Miyamoto from Nintendo's here. He wants to see the demo. So all these stars, from the industry, come and watch our little demo, and it's oh my God, what's happening?
That must have been a surreal moment, right? Because it was at that point it was being made by quite a small team, right? Wow. So 30, 40 people, or by that point?
No, by 2015 we had the whole Killzone Shadowfall team moved over there to help the Horizon team. But the first 3 years it was 20, 25 people on Horizon. And then in parallel, we did the launch title for the PlayStation 4, which was a tough project to do a launch title. And then that team moved over to become the Horizon team.
And post that E3 reveal, did it sort of give you guys more confidence to be yes, we're making the right decision? How did you kind of reinvigorate yourself after that point?
It definitely gave a lot of confidence, but that, of course, didn't solve all the development problems we still had to solve. So there was a lot that we still had to figure out. I remember at that point, we were still figuring out like the density of the world. We always envisioned, that it had to be a gigantic world, like gigantic.
3 times bigger than whatever the latest biggest thing was.
Yes.
A lot more than that will still need to be figured out. I think maybe when we had our demo, the 2015 one, maybe this was 21 months before launch, and there was no quest system yet. Maybe there was nothing yet. There was one robot that worked. The first robot that we did, Biggie, was the big Thunderjaw T-Rex thing, because I was like, we went like, that's the hardest one. If we can get that one to work, Biggie, we have a game. So Biggie, we tackled that one first, but then we're like, okay, it seems like we have a game here. It seems like it's fun to fight these robots. So let's start figuring out, Biggie, what the game around it is.
I think also the demo literally was the first time everything came together, and everything else, like the pipelines are very deep. If you have to take a robot and the design, and you have some outsourcing, and it comes back, and all the review passes, like, I don't know how long is a robot pipeline?
At that time, it was 18 months or so.
Yeah, so I mean, most of the other robots were somewhere in a stage in the pipeline, but then it has like 21 months, and everything has to drop into a bucket and has to come together with the gameplay. It's like, so this is the first time we pulled a bunch of stuff forward to the demo, and we saw it working for the first time, and then of course, like, you have to show it 3 days after at the press event. But it gave us the confidence that we're doing the right thing, because it gave us focus. We got the response, and then stuff was in the works, and then we have to just put it together.
And then the following year, we had a playable demo at E3. And those deliverables always really help focus the team to make decisions. That was also wonderful. We had, remember, we had those big rooms when E3 was still a thing, and on the show floor. And then people would get a small introduction. And then I think we had 20 pots or so where people could play.
Then we did have a quest system.
Yeah,
We did have a quest system.
But a year later.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think that was the biggest kind of shift from Killzone to Horizon? Is like the complete change in like having to build an open world that was full of narrative, and the beginning of this universe, this franchise that you're talking about?
So many things. I mean, I remember the environment art team, for example, was like, okay, we split the environment art team into team gray, brown, and green. It's like, you have the earth brown, it's like all the buildings on this gray, and you have like all the plants green, because like we were not used to making that sort of art. On the technology side, we never made an open world game. We at some point looked at all our tools and it's like, oh, which ones are useful? And it was like, well, not many of them. So we started slowly creating new tool sets from scratch and porting everything over. It's like we didn't burn all the stuff and start anew, but like we're slowly building a tool set that could incorporate either new tools for quest design because we didn't have them, or like replace all tools that we have. And we slowly built this out to a very interesting monolithic tool that's on par, I think, with commercial engines. But there were so many things that we had to learn how to do. It was like the whole process of making narrative. Like normally, like, Killzone was like basically like, you're here, like, hey, this way to the end of the game. And then, you could divide the review process up to like level sections and bits of the game, and you could review them linearly, and we do that with directors. I think at the end of Killzone Horizon, we at some point found out we had a problem because we didn't know what was in the world. We would find content that people put in mockup, and we didn't have a process to track mockup. We had something you could automatically create like mockup sequences with conversations and people put in robo voice and everything, but we forgot to invest in tools to track where it was in content. So we'd find stuff in a review and go like, there's robo voice in the game. What do we do? These actors, can we still get them?
We were sort of like probably maybe like a month before ship, and maybe the art directors were reviewing maybe everything for sort of final finish, and then it would be like, yeah, we found another valley.
We found another valley.
Yeah, like, I don't know, Becky, I've never seen this, Becky. I'll go check it out, Becky, see if it's good. But yeah, there was just so much content, Becky, that it was making it just impossible to keep track of.
Yeah, so I mean, you focus, we very often as a studio, like we focus on the things that we do worst. Like you look at, after every game, we do a good analysis, both internal, like, what do people internally think of the game, but we also do a review analysis. We look at all of that, we make big score sheets and look what people comment on, we look at the forums, look at the community, try to get like a really as objective as possible view of the game. What did people do and don't like? What do we think ourselves? And then we focus on like, there are things you're good at, so you need to make sure that you keep on doing them and excel, because those people expect you to do best. And then look at all the stuff that you're bad at and try to improve it. And of course, like sometimes that's like anything from narrative or combat or technology, like, I don't know, frame rate issues. And of course, some of the stuff that we're focusing on, okay, we know that we need to make this game, we need to up our production velocity. So we invested a lot in tools to make us more productive. And then the problem is like, yeah, you fix that problem, but then you become so productive that you don't know what you've made anymore. So yeah, next time, you try to focus on those things and then you make other new mistakes. Rinse, repeat.
I think we like learning at Guerrilla. I think whenever we ship a game, we learn a lot. I think we always enjoy thinking about, let's, how do we not end up with the valley at the very end that we forgot about?
Although I remember from Forbidden West, we ended up with like the underground caves that were not lit, and the lighting team was like, "Do we have cave systems? Where?" So like, oh, we have a valley again.
Yeah. 30 secret caves. Maybe they were so secret that production didn't know about it.
I wanted to touch quickly on when you said people came to the studio to play not Forbidden West, Horizon Zero Dawn for the first time, and you had cosplayers there, and the reaction that the studio had.
Oh, that was beautiful. Yeah,
very emotional.
You always have these, of course, press events. We always like hosting them at the studio to have journalists and then play the code at the studio. So we did the same thing for Horizon Zero Dawn, and I think it was a 2-day event. First day we have probably 50 journalists over, and they would play in rounds and do interviews. And then the second day they had influencers and cosplayers. But this was for us the first time to just see cosplayers. I think there were 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked around with the 5 cosplayers through the studio, and everybody just stopped working and was really flabbergasted and got really emotional too, because at that point it became so incredibly real that what we had created really resonated. And I think you too, you were like tearing up all over.
Something in my eye. No, and I think like we were sitting there, just like, there was like journalists downstairs, and we were like upstairs, and we were fixing bugs and like trying to work on day 0 patch or whatever. And then all of a sudden there's like 5 women who are standing there, like it's very obvious that for them this is like really real, like spend enormous amounts of time making beautifully crafted costumes. They don't even know what exactly the game is about because they haven't played it yet, but they resonated from the material shown, the trailers, the character they're trying to build. JB would spend a lot of time, like the iterations, so many iterations on Aloy, trying to make her, particularly this woman, strong, not perfect, but also kind, and like there's so much work in trying to create that character. And the fact that this inspired other people to do this. So we were standing there, and people would go from desk. I was sort of like, almost like, can I touch you? It's like, is this real? And it's like you're coming from a world where just fixing bugs to like these people are the embodiment of something you've made.
So far, we only saw, of course, on the internet them posting pictures of the costumes and the outfits they were making. But yeah, this.
Also, nobody told us that they were coming. They were like, I was just doing my job. I was like,
at some point, maybe they were all 5 of them allowed to play the start of the game, and they were sitting all 5 next to each other. And Matthijs and I were sort of looking at Matthijs as the game director. We were looking at it, and they all started crying.
Everybody started crying.
Matthijs and I were just like, "Holy shit, dude!"
It was a good day.
Yeah,
it's a good emotional day.
Yeah. It's a very different experience, isn't it? For like, Aloy is such an important character to the center of this universe. Like, was that an intrinsic part of the original pitch for Horizon?
Aloy was there in the very first version of the pitch. And I think also with the intention to make a really good lead character, because with the Killzone games, can anybody in the room here remember a name of one of the lead characters in the Killzone game? Not Michiel. So we tried. Thank you. So we tried game after game. We tried to have those just really hero characters.
Remember on like NeoGAF or something, somebody jokingly called like, it's Shooterman and his murder friend. I was like, yes, this is about this generic.
So we knew that for the new IP, we wanted a really good lead character that could become a bit of an icon that people could relate to. So we put a lot of effort in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and both names stuck. So the Horizon was already the name of the pitch, and Aloy was already the character in that. So that carried all the way through to the end, which usually never happens. But I guess maybe at some point, we were just so attached to those names that it also was almost impossible for us to separate from that and make it come up with a new name for the main character of the game.
I just think, like I was saying, like Aloy is always the name of the character. Like, it's so beautiful, all the fan art we get, and like cosplays and stuff. Sometimes we started getting the first like babies with like cosplayed Aloy outfits, and I was like, hey, we have a baby named Aloy, and you're like, really? It's like, this is really... And then like in the US Census, you could see like 0, and I was like, so it started to climb up slowly and started accelerating. You're like, wow, we're doing something. It's really...
And a lot of people getting Aloy tattoos and Horizon tattoos, which was a lot better than getting Helga's tattoos.
Yes.
Yeah. I saw someone like a big Helga's tattoo in his neck, and you're like, are you sure you want that? It's like...
The game's really good.
Yes.
It's okay.
Yeah, no, the game's really good. I mean, we're still very proud of that. It's a very beautiful game, but yeah, the iconography of the Helgas is not something that I would, they're the bad guys, but anyway.
Let's talk about how you then came on to make the sequel. Like you said before about Matthias's ACE criteria and trying to improve every single element of the original game. Talk us through a little bit about like how that worked and what ACE standed for.
Yeah, so the first game basically was built on what we call a pillar structure. So we had 3 sort of core statements about basically what the game was about, and they're a little long, so I don't remember them verbatim, but the first one talks about sort of like the overgrown cities, the ruins, the majestic nature, and basically that talks about basically the exploration part of the game. The second part basically is about the combat basically, where it's very much about using your smarts and being clever and building traps and basically feeling like you're a hunter of these awesome sort of machines. And the third part basically is about memorable characters and emotional and relevant stories. And those are sort of like that. Those are still the key building blocks basically of any Horizon game that we make. And then Matthias's approach basically for the second one basically is that he wanted to sort of like not add new pillars or basically flip pillars around, but basically sort of strengthen and lengthen the pillars. So basically build on top of what we already had. And the philosophy that he came up with basically was like an acronym called ACE, which basically meant basically amaze, challenge, and engage. And basically that was sort of basically like every encounter, every story, every environment that we would have basically would need to basically sort of do something basically with these elements to heighten the experience compared to what people had before. So I think basically should be more amazing, more challenging, and more engaging. And so basically we went to work basically with seeing how we can do that. Basically, how can we make the combat more challenging, the characters and the stories more engaging, and also the environments more amazing. And that's basically really basically how we sort of basically build on top of what we already had.
What challenges did that create for your team? Because like the first game was amazing, like impressed everyone in terms of what you guys could achieve. Like what was the kind of next stage in terms of the challenges and how did you overcome those?
I think maybe the biggest challenge maybe with any sequel is sort of, can you recapture that original magic? Maybe it's people now know the IP, so there's, if you have something maybe that's so built on mystery, can you create another mystery again, or do you just maybe fall into repetition? So those were definitely challenges basically of keeping the surprise and the awe and the momentum of the first game basically going into the second game, and showing people basically places again basically that surprises them and amazes them. So a large part of that basically was also sort of adding the 2 layers of underwater exploration as well as aerial exploration. Those were definitely very, very challenging basically from a technical point of view. We literally make it till almost the last moment didn't know if we could support the flying on the PlayStation 4 because that was very, very hard.
Yeah,
so it was like oh, do we need to cut the whole feature from the game? That's going to be such a mess. But we got it to work. We sacrificed some coders to the gods.
They were new, it's fine. No, I think we also know it's like making a game. Anybody who like shipped a game in the pandemic, especially ones with motion capture, deserve a prize no matter what. Like It was so incredibly difficult. We were about to start peak production, all of our actors were lined up, and then also the pandemic hit, and we're like, but we had a plan. Like actually, we had a plan to take our 20 hours of conversations, and again, like we're focusing on the things that are the sort of like lowest tier, and improving that was part of our philosophy. If you played Horizon Zero Dawn, a lot of it was really good, but some of the things like, you have lots of like beautiful cutscenes and like lots of time spent doing it. They have the conversations, and they're definitely a lower tier of quality, and that gets you out of the experience. So we're trying to like focus on not making the cutscenes even prettier, but taking the conversations and making them more lively. So we're like, okay, we'll make a soap opera pipeline. We'll get the actors on set, we'll have the cameras there, we'll do body and face and voice at the same time. Built a whole pipeline for that, time codes, technical stuff and everything are ready to go. The actors booked in, and then the pandemic hit, and you're like, we can't do this anymore. It's not going to work. And first we thought the pandemic's going to be like, maybe 6 weeks or something. But then when it dawned on us it's going to be quite a bit longer, we started, I think together with Insomniac, trying to build recording booths mobile in trucks so we can get them to the houses of the actors. Later on, they become more commodity, and like we could actually start recording.
It was such a nightmare.
Yeah, and then we got.
Insomniac had built these boxes, basically from plywood and foam on the inside, basically where voice actors could put their head in and then record, so basically without hearing the sirens going off outside. So like post-apocalyptic voice recording.
You like get to ship them to the voice actors.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That's what we did. Yeah. So I think we were just in our first big motion capture shoot.
Yeah.
I think we were on the third day when the pandemic hit.
Oh my gosh.
So we rushed to get everybody back to the Netherlands. Yeah, we were optimistic. I was most optimistic. I thought maybe 4 or 5 weeks. Maybe you said, I think you were most pessimistic 8 weeks. It's still very optimistic for how long it would take.
Yeah.
But then to come up with a whole new process, and like JB was just explaining those design pillars about, have the world feel more engaging. That was we really wanted all the characters you would meet, all the little stories that you have in those conversations to be more engaging and come to life at a much higher quality. 24 hours of full performance capture to then, in the midst of the pandemic,
So in
switch
the
that
end,
to something else was. It
in
was
the end, we like Sweden still had motion capture stages open, so we got like body doubles in Sweden and actors in America, and then we had people on rotation who were actually remote voice directing the American side, like the voice acting, and so he'd live on an American schedule and sleep during the day. And then we had people remote directing the mocap set in Sweden, where we also couldn't fly to, with the body doubles, and then we like sort of Frankensteined everything together. And later on, luckily, the Netherlands opened up. We just moved into a beautiful new office, and we had a really good mocap set there, and we got a team of also people with body doubles. So it was much easier. At least we could locally do talent, and we got a little bit more into the pipeline. But we did spend a lot of time on Forbidden West, like just solving COVID-related problems. It was just such. Games are so complex. You have this incredibly complex machine that just fits, and even then, it's very difficult to oversee. And then somebody's like gives us a yank, and you're like, okay, I don't know how this machine works anymore. And it took a lot of the senior people to their time and focus to do it. So. I'm very proud we managed to finish it.
It was such a big effort.
Yeah.
And we indeed got very lucky because the stage in Sweden we only used for the fact that we had our own mocap studio in the new building. So we started on finding a new building in the center of Amsterdam. And that was sort of halfway through big reconstruction work that had to happen when the pandemic hit. And initially, I was sort of managing a project, which was also a real pain in the ass to do. So first I thought, oh, great, they could probably not continue with that. So at least that's one thing off my plate. But then, of course, all the construction work was still allowed to continue. A bit of a miracle that we hit the date for moving into the building. And I think we moved in on a Friday, and then on a Monday we had the motion capture studio operating with Dutch actors who'd never done mocap before. We don't have a motion capture industry at all in the Netherlands, but they were definitely up for it. And that's.
And also, these were fairly famous Dutch actors. Not
yes.
that everybody knows them, but maybe we were like, oh, what are you doing here? It's like, oh, well, yeah, we don't have work. It's the pandemic. No actors working at the moment.
Yeah.
So they were just making really happy that they could wear the silly suits and pretend to act on our mocap stages.
But it was a lot of work, I think, to make everything happen and make everything continue. We're, I think, also very grateful for PlayStation to allowing for additional time, because the original deadline we would have never managed that.
Yeah, trying to recalibrate everything because you guys are a very office-based studio, right?
Yes.
You're very close collaborators, and that's what you come back to now, right? After the pandemic, I think you said there's like 10 people still working.
Yeah, we have a couple of people working fully remote, but it's very few. There's one guy in New Zealand who's been working for 20 years. Wow. It's actually contracted, but we have a couple of other people who work fully remote, but everybody pretty much returned to the studio. I think we just opened a list of everybody wants to return. We prioritized the people who are had mental problems at home, because we did see a lot of, apart from productivity loss, we did see a lot of people with mental issues during the pandemic. So many people, either their work rhythm got estranged, missed the social contact, or were otherwise not doing well. So we started prioritizing getting people back to the studio when we saw all the social distancing rules that had trouble at home. Then at some point, and there was a waiting list, and IT would work off the list, and with management team we would decide and hear about reprioritize things. And that ended up at some point we were for a presentation, we were making inventory, and we were checking to see how many people returned, and we came to 97% or something. And then we started asking, like, okay, so who are the other, like 2.8%? And I think we found 2 teams where the lead was quite comfortable and lived quite far away. And we said, like, well, do you have plans to return? It was like, yeah, they have someone on the list. And then we got everybody back.
We offer a hybrid option.
Yep.
I think what we realized is that we make our best work when we're together. But working from home also has benefits. So we figured, why don't we offer the best of both worlds? I think we also did a good job explaining to particularly the most senior members of the team. It's like, hey, we know you are like excellent developers who all work incredibly hard, but to learn the craft of making games, it is because you can listen in to hearing more experienced people solve problems or see how an artist does something on the screen. I think that resonated well. Yeah. I think everybody remembered from the early days of their own careers. It's like, oh yeah, you do learn a lot from talking to the others. Yeah,
you're not there just to output work. You're also a mentor to others, and you're there to identify what the culture of the company is and to make sure that it gets carried forward on new generations. And you're also there to correct each other and to teach each other. Like, it's a communal effort. But on the other hand, like, also, I think also the pandemic, of course, learned that, flexibility. We were always sort of pushing for flexibility, but all of a sudden, all the technical tools were there. We had VPN and bandwidth and stuff, so it became easier to allow people. So a lot of people work from home a couple of days a week, but there's also many people who just work from the office 5 days a week. A lot of people personally like it because, like, it's a nice separation. You go to work. Most people in the Netherlands have a relatively decent commute. It's not like you're gonna have to stand on a beltway or a subway or something for a very long time. If it's like 20 minutes to work, that's quite average, 20 to 30 minutes maybe. The office is beautiful. It has views over Amsterdam. So, like, although people might have a nice home office, not many people have home office where you have like a view where you look out over a city. So it's a good reason to come.
Yeah, but it's a situation too. I think 55% of all the gorillas, they come to office on their bikes because they live that close that you can just commute on your bicycle. Houses in Amsterdam usually aren't very big either. So if you work, I think lots of people also work, on their kitchen tables. Yeah. Then if you, 10-minute bike ride to the office is actually not that bad. I think, if it was, if I would need to spend 3 hours every day being stuck in traffic jams with my car, I would not want to work in an office either. Yeah. No. So I think it's multiple factors, but we have everybody back in almost everybody, and then some people will work a couple days from home, others are in full time.
Was it hard to transition back from being fully remote and trying to sort of figure that all out? And
no,
was it just natural?
No, we just said, like, we never asked anybody. We just had a waiting list and they just signed up and then they came back.
I meant in terms of like the processes and stuff that you kind of had to unpick and then put back together almost.
We told people that they could request to come back and that they should give their priority. Some people were really desperate to come back to the office. Others were totally fine, or maybe also still had anxiety about COVID. And we told the whole team, like, listen, it's all okay. Like, if you really want to come back as soon, like tomorrow, that's fine. If you just don't feel safe yet, it's all fine. The only thing that matters to us is everybody's personal well-being. Yeah. And that's what we're gonna take as our guideline. And then I think it was more the velocity of the IT team with how quickly they could move people back that determined the order. And we would of course look at priorities of people. And
there was definitely also sort of like a critical mass point. Once the office started feeling full again, people would just come back for a day, just like, oh, I'll come visit the new office because I haven't been there. They would come in and suddenly they're having coffee machine chats again, and they're chatting with their colleagues that they haven't seen, and like within 5 minutes, like, oh yeah, this is better. I'm coming back to the office. So once that all started clicking, it sort of happened very quickly.
I think also a lot of people just forgot. I mean, moving home is as weird as it sounds like, with the whole pandemic, and moving home was sort of, there was a very team building cohesion exercise. I think we saw the pandemic coming 4 weeks before. We're like, hey, this virus that came there, it's strange. Normally sort of it stays somewhere in the Middle East or in China, but it came to Italy, and we're like, hey, how much bandwidth do you actually have for VPN and everything? That's sort of like came like from discussion between me and the IT director to like, a couple of people helping out and making some infrastructure. And then it escalated up to like every day 2 meetings about like what if stuff happens, and then ordering like 4 kilometers of like bubble wrap and 500 boxes and whole schedule. And then one evening we said, okay, tomorrow everybody's going to go home. And it was this team effort, like, WhatsApp group and stuff, and everybody was like coordinating, and programmers going around encrypting hard drives. And it was a really good team building exercise. And everybody, like the next day, like everybody was home with their stuff. We had like, JB was there like organizing taxis, like, we'd order 3 taxi companies, like just keep on going, like whatever you have. In front of the office, there was this line on the...
Yeah, there was just a line of 20 cabs outside the office.
And JB was like, okay,
people like, oh, here's your computer, go.
JB was like, who's going to East? People going to Haarlem. It's like, we're loading up taxis and getting everybody to safety. We're like, I'm just so nervous, like you feel really responsible. And these people need to get safe. This world is... is in danger. And the next morning on Slack channels, we had a work from home setup channel. Everybody was like showing there. We had like people with PS4 dev kits were at home. The PS5s were, we had to wait for a couple of weeks for clearance. I like went around on my cargo bike through Amsterdam, delivering PS5 dev kits by hand.
It's a very expensive bike.
But we didn't allow them to be delivered by couriers because they were like quite special. They need to be locked up. Anyway. But the work from home setups were really cool. Because everybody made their own little space, and everybody's like, let's do this. And I think people got really excited about, we can actually do this, and we were very surprised. We did loads of work on our infrastructure about quicker syncing and virtual file systems, and people were working relatively effectively at home. And we were quite surprised. Like, we were working on a giant game, it's like 100 gigabyte disk, and during development, it's like 2.5 terabytes, and you can actually do it from home on a consumer line because all the improvements to infrastructure. And I think so many people, because the pandemic hit 2 years, they forgot what it's like to actually be around people and have a creative gel. Like it's a certain type of energy you have when you're standing around, and people, you see like sometimes you have that, you look at them, you see people at a monitor and they're looking at something with a profiler and they're going like this, and you're like, and it's like, these people must be talking about something interesting, and you show up and you have a conversation, and that results in an action. And that sort of energy, if you forget that it exists, it's really easy to think that you just, you come out of your bedroom, you get some clothes on, and you go to a computer, you do a bunch of work, and you feel productive. But I think, it's not fulfilling.
One of the things that we've also sort of heard, maybe from our sibling studios, like Assembler and Naughty Dog, maybe that it was okay finishing projects that were going on, but starting up something new was almost impossible. Maybe it was so hard, maybe, to find that energy in the room, and maybe see the doubtful faces and be able to engage people. Maybe it just doesn't work over Zoom. And maybe literally, if you go back to all those sort of incubation projects, maybe where you're starting on something new again, you kind of need to have people in the room and talk to each other and be physically present there.
Because you were like 8 months into development when the pandemic hit, right? So I guess like a lot of those processes have been started, but it was a really critical point when that hit.
We were further along.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we were about.
I can't remember dates.
No,
6 weeks, right?
Yes. Let's see. No, I think we started 2018. We of course did the Frozen Wild still. Yeah.
No, we everything was set in stone. Maybe we knew what we were going to make, and that made it maybe like the main sort of bench in the whole machinery. Maybe was the mocap process, that literally just exploded in our faces.
And the second one was playtesting.
Yeah.
We, as part of our development process, we do a lot of playtesting. It's really a way for us to focus, to see where we need to focus all of our creative energy, and see where we're not still realizing the vision that we have in mind. We used to do this, and we still do again, in the PlayStation User Research Lab in the United States, in California. We use another one in London, but now all of a sudden,
there's no playtesting.
We couldn't get people in a room. Like with Horizon, we had playtests with 20 people playing through the game for a whole week, sometimes even 2 weeks. And now everything was closed down. So that was the other problem that we had to solve. But then we had this sort of magical Sony departments coming together. Yeah,
we had this thing like, oh, maybe we can use like the PlayStation Now streaming service, because we had a PS4 and a PS5 version of Freedom OS. Like, we can stream PS4 games somewhere. Maybe we'll just ask the people, because we happen to know them from conference, Sony internal conference, ask them to see if they can help stream a private version of a game. And then magically the user research team, the PlayStation Now team, us, even the kernel team, to make sure that we could encrypt the traffic going from the PlayStation Now service stream, work together, and we managed to hodgepodge a solution together that will allow us to privately stream to a bunch of playtesters with watermarking and security and everything. And we could live see the video feed that we sent them. We could see the video feedback, so we could actually watch the playtesters at home playtesting the game.
Watching playtesters at home.
Mm-hmm.
They would forget that they were on camera. So you would
Singing.
They're lightly, sort of loudly singing along with the theme song, and their cat is on their head. They completely forget.
That's hilarious.
I remember one person eating lots of crisps, like really impressive. But it was wonderful, right? So within months we were able to do our playtests again, and I think without those two things, finding a new process to do the 24 hours of cutscenes and playtesting, I don't think we would have even been able to make the game.
Yeah, I think, but we did notice that a lot of stuff is. So a lot of senior management, especially, are focusing on these sort of problems, and we still had, of course, you solve a bunch of problems, you still have unencountered problems. The flying in San Francisco thing that JB just mentioned, was like, it was somewhere like a couple of weeks before ship, and we're looking at a review of something that we knew were like might be tricky, and then the world didn't stream in, and I was there, like, I'm a technical director, the world doesn't stream in. And it's like, it was not streaming in late, it was just like not there at all. And you're like, so how long has this not been there? And I was like, in the queue, I was like, well, it's never been there. It's like, I thought you knew. It's like, no, because I don't have a bug about it. And then you notice like the massive communication issues that we didn't know because we relied on so much, tradition and things that how you always do it. Yeah. And we noticed that on many different fronts, like communication issues were just like, and those are things, of course, you could solve if you'd be in a pandemic forever, or if you always work from home. But definitely finishing such a huge game for the first time, and then having to react to those, to those communication issues. So we got a whole bunch of people back to the studio and fix our streaming system in like the next 4 weeks, which if you calculate back from what it is, actually 2 weeks after launch, but we got it, but it got fixed.
Yeah.
And of course, like what we call.
It was also really hard to do. This was the first time that we had to do 2 different platforms. So we were doing PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5.
Wow.
Which I think in the early part of the project, it was really hard to get enough focus on PlayStation 5 and really push the quality bar there. Mm-hmm. And in the second half, it was really hard to get the PlayStation 4 still to run. Yeah.
I think we're quite proud of what because we pushed the quality bar on PlayStation. We said like, well, this has to be like so much better than the previous PlayStation 4 game, but the PlayStation 5 has to look significantly better. We did this test. We said like in every classical Horizon screenshot, you have to see the difference. So like what's in every screenshot? There's the clouds, there's like vegetation, there's the cloth, there's like skin, there's like, we dissected all the elements and started to look at like, what can we do for all of these elements to make them significantly better? Because if you have a screenshot, you should always be able to tell which version it is. And I think we succeeded, but the problem is that also meant like we made the PlayStation 4 game I'm super proud of, but then we made the PlayStation 5 game so much better. A lot of people said like, well, actually I want to play the PlayStation 5. I wait until the PlayStation 5s are available because I don't want to miss out on all that. I was like, yeah, it's like.
It sort of makes sense.
Yes, it sort of makes sense. But yeah, then.
We'll also play it now.
Yeah. But I remember the day that you came into my office and you just said, Angie, I don't know if we're going to be able to fix this. And having worked with Michiel for 20 years.
Yeah, that was not great.
He does not say those things.
Oh my God.
He will say things like, this is not really possible yet. Or, yeah, this will be a tricky one to figure out. Or so, and it was also the look on your face. And I was like, oh shit, we're in serious trouble. And I'm like, well, maybe you're just tired, maybe. And you were like, this is like, and I think it was on a Friday. And you were like, I'm going to go home now. I'm going to take a walk in the forest tomorrow and see if I can come up with a plan. And then me texting you the next day, it's like, how are you doing?
I'm over.
No. We did figure out a plan in the end, but this was, it was very painful. Also, in the Netherlands, the COVID numbers then, of course, they went up again. The government decided to close the schools again early. So it was again, all the COVID problems. And on top of that too, it was the last thing that we needed. But we made it.
Fixed it, yes.
Yeah, we fixed it.
Yes.
Fixed it. And I think we did fix way more after master submission than we would normally do. And also more in the first patches than we would have liked. Yeah.
And we also put a lot more polish in, because I think a lot of people on the team, they were so, I mean, we've been working on something for so long and in such difficult circumstances as well. And the game was like when a chip, it was good. It was good to be reviewed. It was a good game, but everybody had a little bit more like that. They really wanted to finish. And normally, I mean, you're quite strict on what you still allow the team to finish because at some point you need to move on. And you don't want to take that much risk. But it also so like the team is so invested, and so many people have stuff that they feel like it's unfinished. And of course, like a game is never finished. I mean, good artists in the companies are like, good art is never finished. It's abandoned. That's sort of what happens. Like at some point, you have to let go. You have to. I mean, you can't keep on polishing it forever because. But we're like, okay, I think the team is not ready to let go yet. And so we continued, I think, for much more time than usual, just also allowing polish and allowing the team to finish what they started, because it was being very difficult for everybody making a game during COVID. But I'm really proud that we managed the team to pull it off. It's not a small game.
This is just the beginning, right? Like you said earlier that you envisioned this always as a franchise, and now we have a Netflix TV show coming.
Yes.
We have the Lego. Like, tell the Lego story.
You too.
No, but I wasn't there in the inception. I have one anecdote, but like you were there.
So in 2016, maybe a year before the first game launch, maybe we had drawn up this super ambitious timeline, and somebody for fun had maybe put a Lego box set on there, and we were like, yeah, that will never happen.
And that's how we make our plans.
Like that. It's fun to have.
It was a stretch goal.
Hey, keep it realistic, right? But the Netflix show, sure, that's going to happen, but the Lego thing, that will never happen. And then at some point, a new producer started working for him, Tim Simmons, and he just happened to know people at Lego because he built a Lego game at some point. And then he was like, oh yeah, I know some people, they might be interested in doing something with the Horizon IP. And it's like, we were like, well, you for real? Like, yeah, let me just make some calls. And I'm like, oh yeah. So they invited us over to come to Denmark. It's like, welcome to Legoland.
And that was amazing. And then we found out that a lot of the Lego designers, they had already, experimented with the robots. And I think we learned that the robots, because they're animalistic machines, are like perfect for Lego. And it was really nice. So we started building that relationship, and that resulted in the physical tall neck.
I think it's also we shared
really magical.
Yeah, we shared a lot of values with them as well. I think Lego is a very positive product. I think a lot of people have lots of love for Lego. And I mean, with what we're trying to do with Horizon, sort of in the same vein. So we really click with them. But I remember seeing the first, when we were at the headquarters in Billund, we saw the first like production model with a box.
Yes, it was also very cool.
It actually physically exists. And then there's another moment where there's a Lego store right around the corner of our office. And at the day that it arrived in stores, we went there with the entire company, and we invaded the store that opened up early for us and like roached all of the units.
Yeah, it was super cool. It was on a Monday, and then usually stores only open in the afternoon, but especially for Guerrilla, they opened it up in the morning.
All of you just piled in.
And yeah,
yes.
all 300 of us went there to, buy.
Did you just completely wipe out the stock in one go?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. But also it also was wiped out around the entire world in no time, because it sold really, really well. It was like such a huge success. Also, people from more Lego builders that didn't know the game yet were very interested, because it was a very interesting set. Robotic things were very popular. I remember myself have a picture of like sitting at home with my daughter making a Lego set, and it's like this thing, like a career achievement. Like, of course, like making games is great, but having physical Lego of your own game and such a beautiful set was like with your own children was like
cool.
Amazing.
We have only 2 minutes left.
That was quick.
Angie, do you want to talk about your new role, or do you want to talk about the Decima engine? What do you think is the better?
Let's talk about the Decima engine. Let's talk about the Horizon franchise. Let's talk about what's in the future.
In 2 minutes, let's
go.
Yeah, no, of course, Becky, we're very glad, Becky, with what we built with Horizon, and Becky, we're going to be continuing that for a very long while. We have a lot of ambitious plans, Becky. That timeline, Becky, that
a bunch of
that we
things
started
that
in
we haven't talked about.
2016 is still clicking on, and Becky, we have a lot of plans. So as people probably already know, Becky, we're going to be also working on a multiplayer game. We've got a cooperative game, Becky, going on at the moment, Becky, set in the world of Horizon. So we're very excited about that. That's again a massive shift for the studio, Becky, almost on the same level as doing the first Horizon. Because Becky, Becky, building this world out to a multiplayer experience is a whole new challenge for the studio, something that we're very excited about. And at the same time, we're taking the Decima engine, Becky, to new steps as well.
Yes, that's also going to be my focus. I've actually stepped down as studio director, shift my focus only doing tech, because the studio's getting bigger, and I'm fully focused on the engine again. We've got very ambitious plans. Of course, like this, like we have lots of technology to build, but we've always had I think a really good engine, but we've never really showed that much how good our pipeline and workflows and stuff are. It's in the hands of some other teams, of course, working with Kojima Productions in Japan. They made Death Stranding with it. We have a couple of other people using our engine, but we're also looking at like making that a little bit broader. I think it's on some parts it's competitive with commercial engines, sometimes slightly even better, but there's definitely parts where it's subpar. So again, we're going to attack all those parts where it's not as good as the best of the industry and trying to bring it up to that level. So that's going to be me for the next foreseeable future.
The next 20 years.
Yes.
You said that's kind of magic about PlayStation Studios. It's like a unique partnership.
Yes,
right?
I think so. The PlayStation Studios really is this unique network of studios who all have their own identity, their own way of making games. I think it also shows in the great games that are coming out of all those teams. And I think it's quite unique in the industry. What I also love about it is that there's a lot of sharing between all the teams. It does feel like a family almost, where you have your sibling studios.
Mm-hmm.
You can sometimes, pick up the phone and ask one of the other teams, like, "Hey, in your game, we see you tackled this problem. We're struggling with it. Can you help?" And there's always help.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really heartwarming to be part of that.
Sounds like it fits the Guerrilla ethos
Yeah.
perfectly then.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of sharing, and it's not always. Sometimes people think you can just share, a character or a bit of code. I think it's more the ideas, the philosophy of how you develop something, where you learn a lot.
We also get asked for quite a lot of feedback when like studios have like early concepts when they're making a new IP, ask other game directors for feedback. But also on the engine side, like we very often gave just a source code dump our engine to another one. It's like, hey, just take a look at it. And people don't use it verbatim. It's like once you have something from somebody else, or like you share how you did your pitching, or you share a bunch of source code or something, people know where to ask questions and ask relevant questions. And then we have internal conferences. And we started this tradition a couple of years ago. And when we go to conference, we have a WhatsApp group with all the sister studios. So like, hey, and there's people from Santa Monica hanging out here and all over there. And then it's a really good community.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.